Kishar Realm, World of Earth, City of Kataltakuk. Enkidu heads back towards Kataltakuk, moving faster this time in fear of being pursued by the Erede clan. He uses up all of the milk he brought along for the child in 3 days, before crossing the twin rivers of Peleg and Eber, and searches for another city to buy more. It will take him another 2 or 3 days' journey to reach the settlement of Muria, and as night approaches, and Galen cries in hunger, he fears that he will not find a village in time. He begins to pray, asking for the Creator to provide the child with food. Soon afterward, a she-boar wanders past them. Enkidu's hand moves to his sword, but the sow is not aggressive at all. The sow lies down beside them, exposing her swollen teats. She must have only recently weaned her piglets, Enkidu thinks in relief, and thanks the Creator for his assistance. Enkidu places Galen at the sow's chest and the boy latches easily. The sow does not fuss, treating the human boy as if he were her own. After feeding, the sow does not leave. She stares at Enkidu as if waiting for him to figure out what she is thinking. "What is it? What are you trying to tell me?" Enkidu asks the sow. The animal glances at Galen, then at the empty milk containers lying on the ground where they slept for the night. He finally understands, and the sow allows him to fill the bottles up, providing enough milk for them to reach the city of Muria. Believing that because his faith never wavered, the Creator is rewarding them with protection during their dangerous trek. Content with sow milk and sleeping soundly, Galen no longer cries, and Enkidu is able to continue on to the walled city of Muria to replenish his supplies. The largest city on the route between Kataltakuk and Dwarka, Muria acts as a crucial hub of trade between the eastern sea and the villages of the north. Riding into the city, Enkidu ties off Kiades and gives the loyal steed a bag of grain to eat. "Rest up, friend. We have many more days of journey ahead of us," he says, petting the horse's velveteen snout. Galen's snug on his back. Enkidu buys enough bread and grain to last the remainder of their trip, as well as some extra in the event they incur bad weather and are slowed down or forced to detour. Finding milk proves more difficult as pasteurization has not yet been discovered, and the drink does not last long outside of its source. Because of this, he cannot stock up on too many bottles. He will have to find a replacement before reaching Kataltakuk. "How much for the she-goat?" Enkidu asks a herder, who is selling off some of his excess stock. The animal's teats are swollen with milk, but no yearlings are present at the trader's stand. "She is not much for breeding, but you can use her for meat," the herder admits. "I have tried many times, but she cannot birth any live ones. If your interest is in building a herd, I would recommend one of the younger females. She is brought along only so that I have one slow enough to distract any wolves." "How awful," Enkidu says. "If she is a burden, I shall take her for half the price of a meat animal." The herder nods. "Breed stock do not taste as pleasant as meat animals, but you appear set on taking her off my hands anyway." Finishing the sale, Enkidu leads the she-goat back to the post where Kiades is tied. He sits down, removing Galen from the pouch on his back. "Not much longer, child," Enkidu smiles. "Soon you shall be back with your father." After milking the she-goat and resting a few hours, Enkidu takes his animals back on the road north to Kataltakuk. With a sigh of relief, the walls of his home city come into view 6 days later. Enkidu leads his horse to the ridge overlooking the walled city of Kataltakuk. His horse is a powerful beast, and it snorts before stomping its feet upon stopping. Wrapped cloth covers most of the man's face, protecting him from the sun and the strong winds of the arid region. Over the years, the nearby rivers have been diverted to the larger and more populated city of Levant. This has left the nearby cities having to rely on wells and other sporadic sources of water to sustain them. The 100-foot-high stone walls serve to protect the citizens of Kataltakuk from roving bands of thirsty marauders. Everything will be okay now, Galen, Enkidu says, patting the small bundle strapped to the back of his horse. Carefully, he leads his horse down the steep embankment. Be careful now, Kiades. With few stumbles, the mighty steed brings them down the hill, and to the large gates marking the front entrance of Kataltakuk. Open the gates! It is Enkidu. I have returned from Dwarka. Nearing the city, Enkidu senses something strange and looks up at the sky to see the clouds being drawn to a single spot outside the city gates. Chains are pulled over numerous levers, and the stone gates slowly begin to rise with a loud rumbling. Dressed in leather armor with long swords at their hips, men of the city guard lower the gates back into place as soon as Enkidu enters. Captain of the city guards, Amastus, is the first to greet him upon his return. Welcome back, my friend, Amastus Reason says in greeting. The captain towers over his fellow guards at nearly 7 feet. Long strands of dark hair, wrapped in decorative clay beads, drape well past his shoulders to the middle of his back. He approaches Enkidu and clasps his hand tightly with a smile. Is Dwarka as filthy as I remember it? That city is a vile and immoral pit, Enkidu says as he dismounts. Loose women and men, animal worship, and all forms of debauchery imaginable, he finishes with disgust. Amastus begins to laugh. Is that so? I may have to volunteer my sword for the next trade caravan. I've already known all the loose women our city has to offer. Cleanse yourself and pray, Enkidu says with a sigh. Nothing that city offers is to be emulated. You come back plus 1 goat and a child, Amastus says. What kind of trip did you undertake? This boy is the son of my kinsman. I have rescued him from the snares of Dwarka. I would recommend holding off on returning the child to his father. Iasian has been in madness these past weeks, muttering to himself and cursing loudly from his home. That, I am afraid, is my causing, Enkidu says with shame. I pray that rescuing Galen shall pay me some small favor in his eyes. The foul temptress fled in the night shortly after you departed, Amastus says, his dislike for Taraxime apparent. The way in which she rode, I thought for sure that she would overtake you. Enkidu shakes his head. I did not spy her on my path. Fortunate for you both, I suppose. Hide the child from both mother and father until this blows over. What do you mean? Why do you think Taraxime rode out in such a hurry to catch you? That witch intends to raise her clan against you and reclaim that child. Enkidu holds Galen close. She has already made it clear that she would rather see him dashed upon the rocks than have him raised outside of Dwarka. The Eridae clan worship at the altar of the serpent. Amastus knows Enkidu's hatred for those who worship Nyarlathotep. What did you do? I did not take any lives, if that is what you ask. Seeing his friend's relief, Enkidu continues. A worshipper of the serpent would never waste an innocent to sacrifice. Amastus frowns, realizing his humor is lost on the ever-serious man. Lighten up, friend. You really do need to learn how to smile, Amastus says. Enkidu is given a cup of water by one of the city guard and hands Galen to a midwife to cleanse and feed the child. There are more cults appearing in the east each moon. Something must be done to stop their spread, lest the serpent's fangs reach our own gates, Enkidu says, emptying the glass, asking for another. I'm sorry, but my sword is pledged to protecting the village. It is the duty of the warrior priest such as you to engage religious battles. Enkidu sighs and hands the empty cup back to the guardsman. I shall pray for guidance on the matter. If it were I that had a direct line to the heavens, I would pray for more swords and less foes, not guidance, Amastus says, beginning to ready his own horse for a security ride outside the walls. Master Hoyles is not at my beck and call. He is a watcher of events and only guides me when he feels it is necessary for me to be guided. Enkidu helps sling a blanket over the back of Amastus's horse. Regardless, he does not watch over us from Anshar. He resides on a world called Halavan, much closer to our own. The Hashmelin do not have the authority or the ability to order the swords of heaven into battle. Yes, I know, they just watch and guide. Amastus ties the blanket together beneath the horse. Even so, you are fortunate to commune with the Yazata at all. Many go their entire lifetimes without ever seeing or speaking to one. Of that I am aware and thankful. Enkidu clasped his friend's shoulder. Be careful out there, my friend. Amastus places a hand on Enkidu's shoulder. It is clear what you must do to keep the boy safe. Nodding, Enkidu takes Galen to the home of another of the city's current priests, Eskiel, and his wife Naname. Both the priest and his wife are older, and their children have long since begun to raise their own families. Eskiel is a good man, and trustworthy in Enkidu's eyes. Why can the boy not return to his own father? Eskiel asks. He feels dishonest hiding a child from his parents. Galen is not safe where he can be easily found. Please keep him hidden until the Eridae clan's ire is abated, Enkidu begs. I ask you this favor on my honor as a priest, and as a friend. Eskiel nods, never doubting Enkidu's word. When tempers cool, I shall return Galen to his father, but not before. Is the boy truly in danger of harm? Naname asks, taking the child into her arms. The Eridae clan are not to be trusted. The evil of Dwarka is too thick in their veins. I will return soon, but there is something foul in the air that I must first investigate, Enkidu says. We shall pray for your safe return, Naname replies, holding the young boy close to her chest. Enkidu offers to leave the she-goat with them, but Naname insists that one of their granddaughters has just weaned her own son, and will be more than happy to help out with the new baby. With this task done, Enkidu decides to visit Iasion, but soon realizes the strange clouds are congregating from the same area as his kinsmen. Leading his horse and she-goat by hand down the street towards the temple stables, he passes a dimly lit building from which raucous noise emanates. Loud voices and laughter pour out into the streets from the doorway, and an older man with long, dirt-matted hair and a thin frame stumbles outside and collapses to his face with a pitiful moan. Fausto, what are you doing? Enkidu asks with disappointment as he helps the drunken man to his unsteady feet. It is not yet even midday. Is this where you spend all of your time now? After taking a moment to focus his vision and thoughts, Fausto smiles upon recognition of the blurred face. The man's smile is jagged and many prominent teeth are missing, while the rest are yellowed and chipped. Did you expect me to return to the temple and worship? Fausto laughs. I told you when I left that I was finished. I dedicated my life to being a priest, and have nothing to show for it in the twilight of my years except regret. Our lives are not our own. We live to serve others. Fausto presses a bony finger towards Enkidu's face. A man who has lain with his kinsman's bride is not one to lecture me about morals and responsibilities. Enkidu stumbles and is taken aback by the former priest's jab. How is it that every soul in this city knew of their binding, except I? That is an important query. It makes one question the sincerity of your claim. I have sworn time and again that I had no knowledge of their coupling, Taraxime approached me as a woman with no ties to another. As you have now seen, that is the way of Dwarka. They hold no value on faithfulness. Even Master Hoyles warned me that she would be nothing but trouble and bring disaster. Enkidu thinks with sadness. I blocked out all reason and gave in to my desires alone. He could have told me the truth, but knew it was not his place to interfere. I am no better than anyone I look down upon. My crimes are no less than any man's. I do not claim perfection. No man has ever lived that has attained such. We are flawed creatures that fall short of the true path. Fausto moves back and laughs. I am no longer of the faith, so my drunkenness is no sin to me. If you want to discuss matters of the sort, go speak with Eskiel. Now, if you want to discuss the flavors and freshness of the sweet nectar of the vineyards, you have come to the right man. The abandonment of your faith is a grave sin. Do you truly believe that you can mend the relationship between you and your kinsman by bringing his son back to him? Fausto asks, ignoring Enkidu's condemnation. Perhaps not, but Galen's life would be doomed to evil were he to be raised in Dwarka within a household of the serpent. Fausto pauses, momentarily reflecting on this news. The Eridae clan worship the serpent? Galen would have been instructed in their ways, and grown into a man of their liking. My actions go far beyond the problems between his father and I. I'm preserving my kin and his future. Fausto glances back into the tavern for a moment before responding. The ale beckons my return. I bid you good day, my former brethren. He returns inside without another word, leaving Enkidu in the street. You will never find happiness in there, Enkidu whispers in sadness. How could they? Yassian growls. Despair has overtaken this man. All that he knows has become corrupted and profane. He loved Taraxime. He loved his kinsman Enkidu. Now where love once nestled, houses nothing but hatred. Taraxime toyed with his emotions, stringing him along in a sick game. They had a child together, yet she could still betray him with the same flippant ease as if she were brushing her hair. They never truly cared for you. A phantom voice catches the Yassian off guard. He nearly falls onto the floor in surprise. Who's there? He asks, reaching for his sword. Yassian is no warrior, but he still could not allow himself to be killed without making it difficult for the intruder. If it is valuables you seek, I have none but my books. You do not have any writings that I have not already seen. My eyes have beheld every scroll, every parchment, and every tablet in existence. I am the envy of all who court true knowledge. You speak in riddles, Yassian says, looking about the room while tightly gripping his sword. If you do not desire to rob me, why are you in my home? And why can I not see you? Are you another of the Yazata? Do you intend to take back that which you has gifted unto me? I am not in your home. The place where I exist is neither here nor there. I am everywhere, and I am nowhere. Your spirit, Yassian says, easing the grip on his sword. He's smart enough to realize that a sword would be useless against his spirit. Of a sorts, you were partially correct before. I was a Yazata, but that was a very long time ago. Were you killed? Are you the ghost of a Yazata? Sane laughs. Were I a ghost, I would not have so many plans to fulfill. No, when a Yazata is killed, they do not go to the underworld as mortals. All Yazata return to the Creator in death, to live with him in his realm of light and joy, and many other sickening things, regardless of alignment. I am merely trapped in a state that my power cannot save me from. How terrible, Yassian whispers. Do not pity me. It is your misfortune of which I am concerned. The pain of betrayal you have suffered has rippled across the void to touch my heart. I feel your anguish, and know how deep the dagger in your back has been thrust. You have felt all of that? I have. It is because of your pain that you were chosen to bear the book of the Black Earth. Across time and space, the book is called out to you, to answer your prayers and right the wrongs against you. My associate Cedrion has brought to you the book as a gift. Have you read its contents? I have skimmed the early parts. It's interesting, but I do not see how any of it applies to my situation. That book has the power to change your world completely. There are spells contained within, so powerful that one could alter the entire course of mankind. You could crush armies, become rich, become a king, even deliver retribution upon your enemies. Enkidu, Jaraxime, Yassian whispers. Together they conspired to make you look like a fool. They trampled your honor, and even now bring the entire city to mock you behind your back. The city mocks me? They most surely do. In the taverns, the men laugh at how you are not enough of a man to keep your woman satisfied. In their homes, the wives giggle at how small your manhood must be for even a whore to wander from your bed into the arms of a priest. All of Kataltakuk mocks you, and it's all because of those two. Yassian seethes with rage, clenching his fist so tightly that his skin becomes as white as powdered snow. You can teach them what it means to be a mockery. With the book of the Black Earth, you will have the power to return to them your pain, 100-fold. Teach them misery. Teach them true suffering. Yes, Yassian whispers. I shall return to Enkidu and Taraxime, all which they have made me feel. Unseen to Yassian, Sane grins from within his prison. Even without a physical presence in the mortal world, the great persuading voice works his skills of manipulation. All that have ears will listen to the words of the first of the fallen, Sane Sheh Salah. When he is done speaking to Yassian, Sane thinks to himself, the Yazata and their precious humans will all pay for my imprisonment. I did not deserve the fate that I've had to suffer for so long, to be punished for all eternity, just for questioning the choice of building up the human apes. I will have my revenge. You really should not ride off by yourself, Simeon says. At 14, Simeon is still considered a boy, yet as a disciple of the priest Ismail, he is wise beyond his years. Unlike his master, the boy has had a strong physical constitution built up through training with Enkidu. The lessons are hard, but he knows that the only way to be truly dedicated to the faith and his city is to be ready to defend them in both spirit and body. The girl, being his elder by 2 years, dismisses the caution. Lianlim does not tend to listen to the advice of anyone. She is wild and independent. Long ago, even her parents decided that it was not worth their headaches to try and stifle the girl's strong spirit. I shall not be alone. Jubei is with me. Simeon rolls his eyes. Jubei is not a fighter, and much less capable on her own. Should they run into trouble, she would be more of a detriment than a help. The desert is unkind, and there are no springs or rivers between the ranges. They even whisper of ghouls prowling the valleys at night for stray travelers. Lianlim laughs boisterously. Like the Yazata, your stories of ghouls are nothing more than fairy tales, meant to frighten children. You're wrong. The Yazata do exist, Simeon argues defiantly. Enkidu has trained with one for many years. She eyes him with suspicion and pity. Train with one, or claim to hear the voice of one? Has Enkidu ever actually seen his angelic benefactor? Enkidu does not need me to defend him. He's an honorable man and a great warrior. His word holds no lies. Leonlin laughs. Yes, an honorable man who beds the wife of his own kin. I bet that he's not as tough as everyone makes him out to be. She takes out her bow and aims without an arrow towards Simeon. Were he here, one arrow to the heart, it would not matter who he does or does not commune with. Feeling she has asserted herself enough, the headstrong youth rides off to collect her companion and head out for the city of Benares. Simeon debates whether or not to go tell Captain Amastis of the guard about the girl's unchaperoned ride, but decides against it. If Leonlin is so confident in her skills, let her prove herself in the world. Fausto sits in the back of the tavern, consumed in thought as he drinks from his mug of beer. Even in a city with widespread faith in a creator god, there are always still those who do not believe. The tavern is filled with rowdy men shouting and fighting in a drunken stupor. Typically, Fausto would find this atmosphere pleasing. This is the only place within the city where the former priest can be away from the seriousness of the world and escape. After his talk with Enkidu earlier, his mind is now weighed upon by concern, and he finds it difficult to ignore the distractions. Well, this is a presence that has been shut from me for many years. The telepathic voice of Hoyles, the Hashmallam Yazatan Watcher, says to Fausto. More annoyed than surprised, Fausto barely acknowledges the Yazata. I let my guard down for a fleeting moment, and you jump at the opportunity to torment me. Torment you? I never did anything except teach and guide you. The bitterness and resentment of your own heart is the cause of your suffering, not me. Your sermons no longer affect me, Yazata. I have seen the truth of your kind and their ways. Do you think I closed myself off to you, just so that I can indulge in my love for beer? I considered it a possibility. Your fermented beverage is not one we ever anticipated coming into use. Spare me your attempts at humor. I know the truth. You cannot lie to me anymore, not like you continue to do to Enkidu. Hoyle's voice becomes more serious. That's unfortunate. I had hoped you merely had come around to repentance. Repentance? For what? Fausto is outraged. I did nothing wrong. Just like the Grigori, I merely followed my heart and became the object of Yazatan wrath. Revealing to him the truth too early would have prevented the maturation of his abilities. We both know how useful Enkidu shall be to the future. That choice was not yours to make. He had every right to know and make his own decision. I understand your frustration, but I've always done only what is in the best interest of your species. Enkidu receiving my training was paramount to the future of mankind's survival. He's nothing but a tool to you. You do not care for him, or any of us for that matter. Something dark moves about your city. I know that you can sense it. Your fault, no doubt. That's unfair. I would never unleash any blight upon mankind. My sole purpose is to watch your world and ensure the survival of humanity. I'm your sole protector, an ally amidst a sea of hostile forces. Many of my brethren still despise you for breaking apart our harmony. Before humans, the Yazata were united as one voice. Was it good tidings You brought us when your kind taught my ancestors magic and how to make weapons of war. You have used us for your own purposes from the very beginning. So I'm not wrong, Doyle says with a long sigh. You too sense the aura of the Yazata within the darkness. Leave us out of your conflicts. All your presence brings about is misery. If one of the Grigori is indeed in this city, we must work together to discover his intentions. If we can stop his plan from coming to fruition, we can save many lives. Trusting you is not something that I can do. Not anymore. I was steadfast in my faith. I acted upon every instruction you gave me without question. You understand how painful it was for me to learn that you were nothing but a liar? You used me like every other priest before. Enkidu's father trusted you, as did his grandfather. Where were you when each of them were killed? Did you really think that I would remain loyal to you after that? I told you then, as I tell you again now, the extermination of the Nephilim was not my doing. That task was one suited only for the brutality of the Seventh Choir. I protected both Sam and Enkidu from their blades. If it were not for my intercession, they too would have been killed. And yet you still sent Sam to Dwarka, knowing that he would never return. Doyle's pauses, filled with pain and regret. I see many possibilities, but none with certainty. I am neither prophet nor seer. The serpent cult could not be allowed to spread any further. Were it not for Sam, even this city would have been infected with the poison of Dwarka. Enkidu told me that the Eridae clan worships the serpent even now. How do you explain that? Fausto asks accusingly. Dwarka is a den of immorality and corruption. It is not surprising that they would choose to worship a being infamous for its thirst for violence and debauchery. I must be sure to never again lower my guard in times of weakness, Fausto says, finishing his beer with one final draw. Your bullshit reminds me of why I blocked you out in the first place. Fausto. Doyle tries to respond, but the magician's mind and presence have once again become inaccessible to the Yazata. Having ridden out of the city and onto the edge of the Idiota wastes, at the urging of the phantom voice, Yassian prepares his spell. Malice and pain fills the man's heart, and he cannot think beyond the pain and betrayal that he feels. Cutting open his palm, he uses his own blood to activate the ancient Yazatan magic and initiate the intricate spell arrays carved into the earth. What once was, is, come forth. Kukose as nis iokam. Kukase as is nis iokam. Kukase as is nis iokam. Yassian screams, reciting the words from the Book of the Black Earth. The ground quakes violently and the sky becomes blood red. Strange bolts of crimson lightning dance about, striking the ground and transforming the desert sands into shining black glass. The smell of sulfur fills the night, and rocks levitate as the gravity around the spell array alters. More lightning flashes, and the ground opens up into a deep trench that releases clouds of steam that cause Yassian to leap backwards to avoid being scalded. Soon I will have the power to make those two pay for their betrayal. Yassian screams as lightning explodes all around him, and the ground continues to shake violently. The tremors subside, and Yassian grows impatient, as even the sky begins to return to normal. After over an hour passes since reading from the book, nothing else has occurred. Disappointed, he returns home to see if he performed something incorrectly. It failed, Yassian whispers in defeat. I sought to bring forth demons into this world, and bind them to me as my slaves, and punish my enemies. But now it appears as if the book is nothing more than a collection of lies. After after Yassian returns to the city gates. A small ripple moves through the air towards Benares, until a glowing tear opens up in the dimensional fabric. Too small for a full being to pass through, the tear does not draw any attention. Negative energy becomes thick in the air, stretching between the two cities and across the desert. Connected by the spell, the area between Benares and Kataltakuk is rife with darkness. Slowly, the fissure begins to widen. The skies over Kataltakuk and the surrounding areas swirl with black clouds. Thunder and lightning fill the air, stirring the populace into fright. Enkidu reaches the home of his kinsman, his face covered in a cloak to shield him from the sudden downpour of freak rain and powerful winds. "Yassian!" Enkidu shouts, pounding his fist on the door. "Come out! We have matters to discuss of the utmost importance." Sitting in depression, Yassian tries to ignore the shouts of his relative. He is upset that the spell for the opening of the doorway to Averno has seemingly failed. He is upset that he will not get his revenge. "Have you come to steal whatever else I possess?" Yassian finally asks, when it is apparent that Enkidu is not going to leave. "Cousin, I never meant to do anything to hurt you. Please, just come out and talk with me. The thought of seeing your face makes me ill. Now leave me be," Yassian growls. If the Sicarii had come forth, he'd enjoy seeing them slaughter both Enkidu and Taraxime. Images of shadowy figures dance in his mind, plunging their swords through the chests of their victims. The slightly metallic taste of magic and the static electricity generated by the buildup of energy lingers near the home. "What have you done, Yassian?" "None of your business." He grabs a dagger from the table and prepares for a fight, since the Yazita brought him the Book of the Black Earth. The phantom voice has slowly pushed Yassian further into madness. "He seeks to take it all from you," the voice of Sane whispers into Yassian's mind from beyond. "I have nothing left for him to take," Yassian says in despair, clutching the dagger tightly. "He took Taraxime and Galen from you. Have you seen how everyone in the city looks at you when you pass? He has poisoned everyone against you." "Enkidu was my kin. Why did he do this to me?" "He was jealous of you. He coveted your mate and desired to steal her away. Together, they plot against you." Enkidu again knocks. "Please, Yassian, come out and speak with me." "Kill him," Sane urges. "Take back what is yours. He claims to be a holy priest, but he is sinful and evil. Destroy him, and cleanse this world of his taint." Yassian stands, the dagger in his hands shaking. "Why do you hesitate? Kill him. Do you not hate him for all he has done to you? Kill him." "Go away!" Yassian screams in anguish, finally driving Enkidu from the home. "Pathetic," Sane growls. "You're not worthy of the power that the book bestows." "Trouble me no longer, foul spirit. Be gone," Yassian shouts, clawing at his head. Sane laughs. "Oh, it is far too late for that. You are my slave now. You have opened the doorway to Averno, and soon the Sicarii will spread over this land and devour humanity. All of this will be thanks to you." Smoke rises from the flame-ravaged landscape into a blackened sky. The thunderous roar of dozens of men on horseback riding to war echoes back against the fortified city walls. The warriors of the surrounding areas are proficient riders and archers, setting off to battle to protect their village, but they are few in number and will be overcome quickly by the superior might of the Sicarii. Raised before recorded history, Benares is encircled by 100-foot-high walls of stone, with the eastern side flanked by a deep ravine of natural origin. The men ride into the village through the toppled walls and stare down their foes. shadow-like creatures with fire for eyes. The creatures are called the Sicarii, and they have come to conquer. Leather shirts beneath iron hauberks protect the riders from light attacks, but as soon as the men see the opposition's forces, they realize their armor will be for naught. Captain Rivius of Averno's 5th Regiment, a member of the Kuan tribe, withdraws his sword from the belly of a farmer and pushes him to the ground with his foot. The farmer's eyes remain open and lifeless as blood swells out around his form. "It appears that this village has some warriors after all," Rivius grins. "Kill them, and do not leave a single man alive." The front lines of men are knocked from their horses as the skies are filled with arrows. Screams fill the air, and the Sicarii are quick to rush in and swarm their wounded foes. Swords come down hard in killing blows, and the reeling warriors, still mounted, are forced to break their ranks and ride into the side alleys in an attempt to flank their opponent's archers. Rivius instructs several groups to pursue, and they rush off on foot after their prey. At the end of the alleys, the horsemen turn and spur their steeds onward in a full gallop. The Sicarii are cut down easily, and only a handful are able to pull riders down and kill them. Angered at being outmaneuvered, Rivius calls for his magicians to move forward. "While they're within those narrow spaces, they're easy prey. Burn them to ash!" Rivius screams. "Dioso aginestra!" The soldiers weave intricate hand signs while visualizing the symbols to call forth the magical energies. Flames erupt from their hands in torrents and fill the streets and alleys. It only takes the Sicarii an hour to finish off the last of the village's defenses, and soon no man is left alive. Women and children are corralled by soldiers laughing with delight. Many are lashed with claws and blades, but left alive under the captain's orders. "Weaklings, the lot of them!" Rivius laughs, licking the blood off his blade with a long forked tongue. "If this was any indicator of the human strength, we should not need the might of the invading force. Our scouting expeditions shall suffice to conquer their world. There is a larger concentration of humans several miles to the east," a teal-skinned Sicarii soldier says, dragging a crying woman behind him by a leg. "Rope those still remaining together as slaves. We shall gain great riches selling these humans back in the capital." "The east is mostly desert, sir. I've not sensed much life in between." "Then gather as much water as possible, then cure and dry the flesh of their dead for travel. We may need the extra supplies should the desert prove difficult." Enkidu kneels in Kataltakuk's largest temple, eyes closed and in deep meditation. While in this state, he is much better suited to be in communication with the Yazata. Doyle is able to make a connection with Enkidu at any moment, but when the man's spirit is calm and in meditation, there is much less strain or interference. Even so, the Yazata can sense the pain and conflict in his student. "What is done cannot be undone," Doyle tells Enkidu. "Take what you have learned and always move forward. Do not dwell on what you cannot affect." "Sin weighs heavy on my heart, Master. I have wronged my own blood for carnality of the flesh. I am no better than any who I have looked down upon in the past. How can I move forward when I have betrayed everything that I stand for?" "I think you are overreacting a bit. Did you mess up? Absolutely. But you are genuinely repentant, and that counts for much more than you seem to believe. All mankind is weak to the flesh. That is why desires must be regulated so as to not consume you. Not even the Yazata were always immune to such desires. You speak of those who were expelled from heaven for falling in love with mortals?" "I do," Wills replies. 200 of my brethren became so infatuated with humanity that they lusted for them and were consumed by that overwhelming desire. They cast aside their duties and broke laws set in place by God in order to satisfy their lusts. Before sane or sataniel ever led 1/3 of the heavens in rebellion, humans were not hated by the Yazata. It was in part to the resentment caused by the Grigori desertion that brought about Sataniel's campaign to rally anger against the humans. I tell you this because not even the Yazata are above temptation. Rather than admit their shortcomings and ask for guidance, the Grigori tried to hide their sin and became lost in darkness. No sin is beyond forgiveness, Enkidu whispers aloud, understanding the lesson. It's much easier for the Creator to forgive you than it is for you to forgive yourself. Guilt will only cause you to dwell within that negativity. You must rise above that stain and strive to improve. How can I move on from here? The betrayal I have caused has driven my kin into madness. I fear that something much worse is responsible for the spreading darkness that surrounds your relative. I sense a familiar, yet foreign presence in your city. This evil works in secret, corrupting all who come near it. My cousin is not entirely unfamiliar with magic. He was never a member of the priesthood, but he collects rare scrolls and engages in rigorous study. It may be possible that he has summoned a dark being into this world. I did catch the linger of magic in the air about his home. The power I sense is only faint in your world, as if it is only scratching at the surface and not yet here. If your kinsman is indeed engaged in dark works, you must return to him and stop him from proceeding any further. The beings that are banished from Kishar must always remain so. The Sangam cleansed the mortal world of such creatures long ago because of their terrible destructive power and malicious nature. Enkidu ends his meditation, gathering his sword and leaving the temple to confront his cousin once again. The Zakari general named Yamura stands outside of his military barracks, loading packs of supplies onto a large elephant-sized lizard called a Nupas. With his slender build and pale blue skin, Yamura appears less threatening than some of his older compatriots, but this is misleading. One look into the blood-red eyes would scream for you to not underestimate him. Not all Sakari possess horns, but Yamura's noble bloodline carries with it that particular trait. Long horns spiral from the sides of his head and taper off into sharp tips, which he has used to pierce his own ears in a ritualistic style. His hair is black and oily looking, a perfect match for his unsavory personality. "Are the preparations ready for you to move out?" King Marduk asks, approaching with several of his royal guardsmen. Yamura loads another pack of supplies on the Upas and straps them into restraints made from the leather-like material composed of treated, then dried Gomphios hide. The Upas are a large species of lizard, closely related to the monitor family. The denizens of Averno primarily use them for the same purposes that humans have used hoofed animals, such as horses, mules, and camels. Their hides are several inches thick, protecting them from assaults from archery regiments. The Upas grumbles uncomfortably, and Yamura pats it on the nose to calm the beast. "We are ready, but I do not understand why you have sent Rivius's regiment in with the criminals and slaves." Yamura responds with disdain. He eyes the royal guards, who each grip their weapons tensely. It's widely known that Yamura holds no positive feelings towards the king, and if he were ever to manage to get the ruler alone, Marduk would not come out of the encounter alive. Despite this threat, the king deems Yamura's usefulness in war as a strategist and as an elite fighter to warrant his continued survival. Were it up to any of his guardsmen, Yamura would have been put to death years ago. It has been thousands of years since our two worlds were connected. We do not know how much things have changed. None of us were even alive back then. It's best that we do not waste valuable military resources when scouting can be accomplished with undesirable components of society that are expendable. If we supported Captain Rivius with our full might, we would overcome whatever awaits us. Ymura argues, gripping the reins tied to his upos so tightly that the beast squalls in agitation as well. Perhaps, and perhaps not. I'm not willing to gamble. If our forces take a considerable loss, Lord Terra would not hesitate to begin annexing central lands into his own territory. Murderers like Enazria and Sinkhal cannot be trusted. The first chance they get, they will break rank and vanish, Ymura growls. If by some miracle you become king, Marek smiles, putting his arm around the younger Sakari, then you can make the decisions. Ymura growls and pulls away, storming off to grab more supplies from his regiment's warehouse. I will keep him in line, my lord, Grand General Hui says with a bow. Hui is about the same age as Ymura, but his complexion is a darker shade of blue, and his musculature stockier and less lean. Marduk nods and returns to making his political rounds. And once we are alone, I will kill him, then in Yana. I shall return here as a conquering hero, and the sole survivor of a brutal military operation. Marduk will lower his guard in grief at the news of the Queen's passing, and I will end his life as well. Their spawn will be dealt with, easily enough, and the royal guards as well, Hui thinks with a smile. With no other relatives, I will become next in line to the crown as King Marduk's chief of military.